Next up here is growth. The limitations of growth. Okay, so we all want growth for various reasons. We want growth because we become richer. We can spend more money on green technology. It sets off the multiplier accelerator. There's more investments. So there's lots of reasons why growth is a good thing. Okay, but the problem of growth is it does not take into account pollution. We know the climate crisis. Storms in this year wiped out their harvest. So therefore food prices went up, and also leads to a rise in inequality. Right, so that's one. So we always say growth is a bit of a raw indicator. On the syllabus, we also have the Human Development Index, right, which is GDP per capita, life expectancy, and also education. So this one is a broader term in terms of looking at development. We can also look at something like the Happy Planet Index, which is life expectancy times experience well-being divided by ecological footprint. This is not on the syllabus, but it's always a really useful one to talk about. So here we talk about Costa Rica, which is the number one country in the world. So 99% of their electricity comes from renewable resources. So they've also gone big on ecotourism as well. So between 2012 and 2022, if we compare this to the UK, for example, they had 3.2% growth. In 2023, it's 4% growth, and in 2024, it's projected to be 4% growth. So it's a success story, both in terms of the Happy Planet Index, where it's the number one country in the world, but also in terms of economic growth. Now, that could be because they've gone down the green route. Okay, then we're going to spend a little bit of time on a demand side shock. It's literally just a fall in demand, and that is due to the financial crash, e.g. 2009. Or a supply side shock is when the AS curve moves inwards. It creates cost push inflation because oil and gas prices have gone up. We could get a supply side shock going the other way, maybe artificial intelligence, which will shift out the AS curve, or nuclear fusion or something like that. Okay, cost push inflation. Remember also good deflation, which is similar to a positive supply side shock, is where the AS curve moves outwards, whereas bad deflation is when when the AD curve moves inwards. So we could also draw, that is a bad deflation diagram, which is the same diagram as a demand side shock. Right, short run growth is literally when AD moves along the AS curve, and long run growth is when the productive capacity moves out. Purchasing power parity, when we equalise the purchasing power of different currencies. So our currency, our pound note in the UK, will buy less than what it does in India. So therefore, when we look at India, in the UK, we might have an average GDP per capita of $30,000 a year, and whereas in India, it's $8,000 per year. Right, but in India, you can buy more with $8,000. So purchasing power parity equalises those currencies. Remember, China and India have export-led growth. Okay, we want to talk about the output gap and also productivity. Okay, so in 2004, we also did a negative output gap. Between 2009 and 14, we also did a negative output gap, so therefore we want to increase AD. In 2022, this is quite important, we had a positive output gap. Now that's when the Bank of England rapidly started raising interest rates during this time, because then we were more likely to get demand pull inflation. And between 2024, we had we've now got a zero output gap. Now, something slightly odd has been happening to our AS curve. And maybe this is due to Brexit, where the AS curve has actually moved inwards. So Jagdeep Chadha, director of the National Institute for Social Research, believes that Brexit knocked 5.5% off our productive potential in the UK. The Office for Budget Responsibility thinks that figure is closer to 4%. This is why, even though we're in a recession, our economy has been hit by the fact that we've had Brexit, so therefore the AS curve has slightly moved inwards. We've also got very poor productivity in the UK, which is 8%, 18% lower than most countries in Europe. Productivity, remember, is measured by output divided by input, or labour productivity is output divided by the amount of labour. So we've got poor productivity in the UK, which means the AS curve moves out more slowly. We've also got fiscal drag. Remember, I keep on going on about this. We're not raising tax thresholds, so people are paying more income tax, because as your income rises, you're more likely to go into a higher tax band. Pay rises, you move into higher tax bands from there. Okay,